Hey guys, welcome back to episode 3 of Between Realms, the podcast where we explore the intricate web of fandom culture and its impact on our lives. I'm your host Carrington, and today we're deep diving into a topic that's not just fascinating, but very relevant right now. The degrees of fandom obsession and how far is too far. Having a deep interest in a fandom can be a really good thing, but you can take it too far. So today we're talking about why we like watching the same things over and over and over again and how these fandom obsessions impact our mental health. This episode is jam-packed with details, so grab a snack, your favorite drink, and let's embark on this journey together. Let's kick things off by exploring the psychological concept of familiarity and how it connects to fandom obsessions. There's a multitude of psychological studies that shows rewatching familiar shows releases the reward system in your brain, your dopamine, your happy hormone. This is particularly important in times of really high stress or uncertainty. This provides a feeling of safety. Diving back into shows like New Girl, Friends, Parks and Rec, and other things like that creates a sense of a comforting routine. These shows serve as a mental safe space, where the predictability of the humor and the storyline allows fans to disengage from their real-life worries. Take Marvel fans, for example. Most fans probably have a favorite comfort character that they like to go back and read that comic again or watch that specific movie. Depending on your real-life experience, that kind of shapes who it is, but a lot of MCU storylines show resilience and heroism, and it allows us to work through these trials of day-to-day life and overcome. Now, my personal crutch is always going to be Harry Potter. I wake up from a nightmare in the middle of the night, I will read a specific chapter that I'm thinking about. Every single time I'm sick, I have to watch that on repeat. Currently, I think my record is watching the entire series of all 8 movies 6 times over in a row without leaving the house. I had food poisoning. Now, there's a huge downside to overindulgence, as we all know. This comforting routine can have really negative outcomes if it's taken too far or left unchecked. Excessive binge watching can lead to avoidant behavior, things like neglecting responsibilities, avoiding real-life interactions, and failure to take care of themselves. A study published in the Journal of Behavioral Addictions highlights that excessive engagement can lead to social isolation. These individuals are choosing to immerse themselves in fictional worlds rather than face reality more and more often. Extreme cases have emerged where fans have isolated for days on end and wildly neglected their own care. Even cases like people refusing to go to work, they haven't seen these people at work in a week. I actually just met a girl who used to have a gaming addiction so bad that she actually found it in herself to get rid of her PS4 and has not owned a gaming console since. These kinds of situations really underline the importance of moderation. Far too many of us know what it feels like to go too deep into a fantasy world, and waking back up to reality is like crashing into a wall. Have you heard about how people go to Paris, France, and they're so underwhelmed and disappointed that it doesn't meet their expectations, that it's dirty and gross and there's all these things happening and they just didn't expect it, and they had this crazy idea about what Paris, France was supposed to be, that there are actually people that have to seek professional help because what they thought was reality and what is reality was so disproportionate. That's how I kind of imagine this. I read a whole article on how this was specific, not specifically and only, but the article was specifically about this happening to Japanese people, and how there was a whole section of at the embassy they were there's a whole area at the embassy where they were helping all of these Japanese people that were coming to Paris and couldn't cope. When Game of Thrones was still on TV and everyone was either so disappointed with season 8 that they couldn't cope with reality of the world, or they were so immersed that they couldn't think or talk about anything else for the entire week while they were waiting for that next episode. Identity and community. Segment 2. Another fascinating psychological aspect of fandoms is the role of identity and community. Participating in fandoms significantly contributes to an individual's sense of self. Research was published in the Journal of Adolescent Research that shows that fans derive their identity specifically from their involvement with a fandom, and they often find a lot of like-minded individuals this way. Star Wars is an amazing example of fans engaging in cosplay and these group conventions together and getting together for all these fun Star Wars themed parties, or How I Met Your Mother episode where Ted and Marshall would watch the trilogy every 3 years. There are people that do things like that in real life everywhere. As we know, character arcs often reflect personal struggles. This allows fans to identify with themes of perseverance and redemption. representation. And this can lead to increased self-esteem as fans find pride in themselves and this identity. Now, while the Team Edward, Team Jacob rivalry of Twilight seemingly split the fandom, in reality, it did allow them to connect with what they connected in the movies and find those like-minded individuals. So Team Jacob found Team Jacob, Team Edward found Team Edward. You had t-shirts, you had poster boards, you had the cardboard cutouts in your room. You had everything to show exactly whose side you were on. You were writing Team Jacob with little hearts around it in your journal. I am still Team Jacob. This kind of fandom participation led to lifelong friendships and bonds. Like, I have the coolest story. I went to Forks, Washington, where like the actual Forks, Washington, where they based Twilight off of, not where it was like actually filmed, but it was the town that they based Twilight off of. And I met the coolest girl in the world. I'm gonna put all of her information in the description below, but she was writing songs for Twilight, and then the author of Twilight heard her songs and put them on her website. So this girl is like actually attached to Twilight, and that is her fandom participation. She works at the Twilight Museum up there. I literally got to that museum in the last few minutes it was open, and she let me like peek my head around the corner and look at Chuck Esme because all I wanted was to see Chuck Esme, and we were leaving town the next day. It was my only opportunity to go, but it was our shared love for something like this that created that bond. I still like every single Instagram post she posts. I comment all the time. I support the shit out of her. And it is because we had a shared love of a fandom. Yet the intense identification with a fandom can really lead to extremes. Some fans become so immersed that they're crossing personal boundaries. Pretty much every fandom has an incident where an actor was stalked, had something horrible happen to them, something scary happen to them. Twilight, Harry Potter, Marvel, like all of them have had that happen. And these people just get so attached to this like fake character that they only see these real human beings who are just actors as that character. They only see Spider-Man, only see Tony Stark, they only see Wanda or Harry or anything else. Like they don't see the person, they just see the character. Now, this isn't just towards our idolized characters that we love so dearly, it's also towards other fans. The internet makes it really easy to be a mean person. These online debates are a scary place to be sometimes. For as much as I just said about the Twilight fandom being a good thing, even that rivalry could turn toxic and really push people apart. This is when it extends beyond a friendly debate. At this point, you are just like arguing just to argue. And it can get cliquey. You have people that are either fiercely loyal to the fandom as a whole so much that they are wary of outsiders, like somebody that's like picking up the fandom for the first time, that if you didn't jump in when they jumped in, you're not allowed to jump in anymore, you missed your train. Or it's the people that are fiercely loyal to a very specific character and take things probably a little bit too far. These characters our favorite authors and directors create for us are meant to be interpreted through different perspectives, and our real life experience shapes that perspective, thus shaping how we view these characters. Why I love a certain character in the ACOTAR series, but my best friend in the world hates the exact same character. How is that possible that she's my best friend, but we feel so differently about a character? But we don't allow it to change our perception of one another or our love for one another. We are understanding that we are talking about a fake thing, and a lot of people just, it's not fake to them anymore. It's just not fake to them anymore. Now, like I said, the internet took this to an entirely new level. Keyboard warriors are everywhere, taking down egos and self-esteem. One time in an interview, George R.R. Martin, the guy that wrote Game of Thrones, even went as far as to say, I wrote it down, I'm not even gonna try. The internet is toxic in a way that the old fanzine culture and fandoms, comic fans, science fiction fans in like those days, were not. He goes on to say, there were disagreements, there were feuds, but there was nothing like the madness that you see on the internet. Yeah, before you were just standing in your comic book store talking about, you know, what the Hulk would do in a battle against the Falcon / Captain America. So you're just standing there having those kind of debates. You're not having these like intense moral disagreements. Now, this overly close attachment to these fictional characters is often tied to our real life experiences and how we project onto others. We often identify personally to a character or develop a really strong attachment to them, like a friendship or even a romance. Because these debates about a fictional character are actually really personal, because you're not even talking about the fictional character anymore. It is personal. It is that deep at that point. You don't even realize that you're not talking about Severus Snape. You're actually talking about that person's lived experience with bullying. And let's be clear that I said that sentence to be ambiguous, if I'm saying that word correctly, and we all know I'm probably not, but I wanted it to be interpreted I wanted that sentence specifically to be interpreted in two different ways. Snape fans and haters can have fun with that one in the comments. Segment 3, the role of creativity. Creativity is another powerful psychological aspect of fandoms. Engaging in fan art, cosplay, writing, so many different mediums that allow you to connect with others and this fandom that you love. These creative outlets really allow fans to deepen their connection to the world, but also explore alternate realities, explore theories, explore ideas. It really just in turn fosters more creativity. A lot of times this also allows fans to process their emotions or their things that they've gone through in life, their personal struggles, through their art, that by creating this art and working through this storyline of their beloved fandom, that they are able to work through something in themselves as well. Now, Game of Thrones provides an intellectual outlet through the complexity of its characters that really inspires their fans to create fan-based content, engaging in discussions and theories that are still going to this day. The act of theorizing a character's arc or the future plot points really creates a strong community. And if we haven't learned yet today, you have to have moderation, because if you take it too far, it goes bad. Creativity can lead to obsession, and this can lead to more unhealthy behaviors. Some fans spend excessive hours creating content, sacrificing sleep, social interactions, taking care of their own mental and physical well-being. There are plenty of reports of fans neglecting their personal relationships just to create, fan art. In extreme cases, the pressure to produce high-quality fan content can lead to a lot of mental health issues like anxiety and burnout. Fans can feel inadequate if they perceive that their work isn't meeting community standards. This leads to a horrible cycle of self-doubt and pressure to perform. I have a really bad issue with perceiving that my work isn't good enough for you guys, and I literally had this happen to me today right before I was filming this episode. I have been trying all week to film this episode, and every time I go to do it, my brain just keeps telling me, nobody's gonna like it, this information isn't interesting, this is ridiculous, you're the only one that cares about this, like nobody's gonna like this episode, it doesn't matter, nobody's gonna care. It's just what my brain keeps telling me. And to practice my script, I put my computer on like a text to speech thing, so that way I could hear it and I could like listen to the script all day long while I was doing other stuff, so filming would be easier for me. And I did that, and I was listening to it and I was like, I know I wrote this script and I know that this is my own writing, but this is good. And I was like engaged and I was like nodding along and like thinking of all these things that I would like say or comment, and I was like, oh no, this is a good script. I did a good job. So that was very affirming for me. But like I've been trying to film this episode for 5 days, and it took me 5 days to get past my own head to film this for you guys. It can go too far, and I feel the pressure to perform a lot, and this kind of pressure makes it really hard for me to create, and it makes me very self-critical, and I'm trying to work from a space where I'm not self-critical, and I kind of just enjoy talking to you guys because I really enjoy this, and this is really interesting to me, and I just hope somebody else finds it as interesting as I find it. Segment 4, obsessions with fictional love interest. So let's delve into the allure and how they capture the hearts of their fans. The two I'll be referencing most specifically will be Draco Malfoy and Padme Amidala. The girls that love Draco are feral, and you know it too. You're sitting there on the other side of the screen like, ha ha ha, you are. Now these characters often embody traits that fans find desirable and that they would probably look for in people in real life. Research shows that attraction to fictional characters can fulfill emotional needs such as a sense of validation and connection. This phenomenon is especially prominent in young adults who may seek comfort in these idealized relationships that kind of mirror their desires. The allure of a character often lies in their complexity and growth, mirroring the struggles and aspirations of their audience. Now, when I was in high school, my best friend and I spent a lot of our time in her basement watching something called Teen Wolf. She was a Styles girl. I was what was his name? Oh my god, what is Tyler Posey's name? What is Tyler Posey's name in Teen Wolf? Scott. She was a Styles girl, I was a Scott girl. The emotional investment to characters like this allowed fans to escape to a world where bravery and friendship prevailed. Now, while these fictional relationships can offer some comfort, it can lead to very unhealthy expectations in real life. Some fans may feel inadequate if their romance doesn't live up to this idealized version that they've built in their head. This often leads to unrealistic expectations, loneliness, and lots of disappointment. Additionally, explicit fan art and fan fiction can blur the lines of boundaries and what's appropriate. Sometimes when they're creating art like this, they take certain liberties to depict a character from the way they see that character, which might not line up with the original author's version, which can cause complications or stress or, unsettled feelings to somebody who doesn't like that version that you wrote. And while they don't need to read it and they can just move on and read something else and spend their time reading something that actually brings them joy, still the fact that they have, an attachment to this character and that's not how they saw that character. So it's almost like a real relationship in real life turning out to not be who you thought it was. Now, the phenomenon of the women that left men because they read the ACOTAR series, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I know far too many people that are on the internet or knew somebody else or someone knows someone or I saw a video or I know someone directly who ended a relationship after they read that book series because the male characters and the romance in that series made them so disappointed in the relationships. Granted, many of these women had very valid reasons to leave these partners and very valid reasons to leave these relationships, and that should have happened anyway based on why they said they left these relationships in XYZ. However, these books can give us very unrealistic expectations of what our partners should or shouldn't be doing for us or shouldn't be engaging in, and this can lead to very disproportionate expectations in a relationship if your partner is not aware of that is your expectation. Now let's take a look at serial obsessors who often hop from one thing to the next. This behavior is often linked for the desire for novelty and stimulation. That individuals seeking new opportunities often have high levels of openness. And in having new experiences in life, this is a key personality trait that drives creativity and innovation. The excitement of trying new things can be really enriching and lead to a very diverse life. Jumping from a new book series to the next trending TV show leaves a very broad spectrum for enjoyment. Engaging in various fandoms can allow for adaptability and creativity as fans explore different narratives and different styles. However, this constantly cycling through of interest can lead to feelings of inadequacy and anxiety. A study in the Journal of Experimental Psychology found that individuals who jump from one thing to the next may experience increased dissatisfaction, feeling like they never really fully immerse themselves into a single passion. Serial obsessor behavior can lead to very surface level interactions. This really prevents an individual from creating deep connections to one community, any one community. And they could feel a lot of pressure to keep up with trends, often inhibiting them from actually stopping and enjoying and sniffing the flowers. They have to keep up with what's new and what's next. Moreover, the fleeting nature of these interests can put a strain on your relationships. Friends and family might not be able to keep up with your constantly changing tastes. They're trying to connect with you, they just don't know how. This can cause a lot of isolation as it can be hard to find people that are able to keep up with your interests and are already interested in the things that you're interested in. Segment 6, the benefits and dangers of escapism. Now, what happens when you become so obsessed that you want to live in that world? An essential feature to every fandom is escapism. Immersing ourselves in a fantasy world can provide really positive psychological benefits. Escapism allows fans to step away from the pressures of everyday life and take a mental break that can really improve their emotional and mental well-being. Research published in Psychology Today highlights that individuals that struggle to process emotions and cope with stress can find a lot of relief and psychological benefits from engaging in fantasy worlds. Characters and narratives often reflect personal challenges, allowing fans to explore complex emotions in a safe environment. This can lead to increased empathy both for oneself and others. For instance, Lord of the Rings fans might resonate with Frodo's journey. I had a Lord of the Rings marathon before I moved from South Carolina to New York, just saying. But Frodo's struggle against darkness can mirror our internal battles. These narratives empower fans, providing them the tools that they need to have resilience within themselves and overcome whatever they're struggling with. Now, there's a very fine line between healthy escapism and losing touch with reality entirely. When fans become too immersed, they neglect real-life responsibilities, and their relationships start to suffer. There are stories of individuals that become so immersed that they lose sight of their goals and lose connections with loved ones. In extreme cases, fans can even begin to struggle differentiating between what is fantasy world and what is reality. Like PETA from the Hunger Games, real or not real. Like people actually experience that. I wish I had saved this TikTok. I saw this the other day because I very much resonated with what this girl said. My brain did the exact same thing, but it's another example of we can kind of take it too far. She said that when she reads a fantasy book, she gets weird, that her brain starts to like narrate things the same way the books would. Like he looked at her with a frustrated expression. Like your brain is narrating, whereas before you would just look at him and think, why is he frustrated with me? Like this is the exact example. Like I don't think she used frustrated, but like she like used some sort of reference in this similarity. And this is the only thing I can think of on the spot. But anyway, like if I spend an entire Saturday reading, like I once went to read before bed and I saw the sunrise the next day and I said, oops, that was an accident. And I felt really weird for the rest of the day. Like just my body felt weird, my brain felt weird, interactions felt weird. I felt like that Hannah Montana episode where she was like outside of her body. It was just an out-of-body experience. I was just going through the emotions and mentally I was still in that fantasy world. Now, the phenomenon of fandom addiction has emerged, which is essentially when an individual will prioritize their obsessions or a specific fandom or XYZ over their own well-being or their relationships. So please go find some balance. I really struggle with it. I think I might make another separate video, maybe like a YouTube short, talking about how I kind of stay in touch with reality while I'm enjoying my fantasy world. I am somebody who struggles with disassociation, so I actually have a mental health challenge that puts me in a very weird place where I can just really kind of disappear into a world and actually lose my connection to myself, and I have to do a lot of things to kind of maintain my connection to reality and maintain my tether. Otherwise, I'm just falling in space in my own brain, and it sucks. But find some grounding techniques, set some boundaries on how much you're consuming, how frequently and how long, and try to maybe make some switches here and there between some fandoms if you can. And I say this with love. Let's all go touch some grass, breathe some fresh air. Now let's take a closer look on how we measure the intensity of a fandom. Understanding the varying levels of engagement can really help you get a grasp on how the individual is connecting to the fandom. Now there are two notable measurements or scales that I want to kind of talk about today. We have Stephen Rayson's fan scale and the fandom measure developed by Samantha Groene and Vanessa Hettinge, because I'm not even going to try. Rayson's fan scale assesses the varying levels of engagement of a fan in a couple different dimensions: emotional attachment, social interaction, and personal relevance. This scale allows researchers to kind of categorize fans from casual viewers to like diehard fans. The findings highlight how a stronger emotional connection can lead to greater engagement, community involvement, and even personal identity formation. For example, a fan who ranks really high on the fan scale is cosplay, fan art, writing, fanfics. Like you're in that shit, like you're doing everything. Essentially, you have a profound attachment to this material. And we love the positive impact on our mental health from having a sense of identity and belonging. Also a little boost to self-esteem too. Now on the other hand, fandom measure focuses on the reasons why they're engaging, the motivations behind fandom engagement. Their research identifies various categories such as escapism, socialization, and identity formation. By understanding why individuals engage with specific fandoms, we can better comprehend the psychological benefits and challenges that come along with it. For instance, a Potterhead that's drawn to Harry Potter for the escapism would be looking to watch watch the film and engage in their fandom when they're going through difficult times, and that's often usually by themselves, maybe with somebody that they feel comfortable and close with. Another way may be a more community aspect. They are a friendship-seeking fan and they are going for shared experiences. They're going to the Harry Potter store. They're on those Reddit threads, those online discussions, all that stuff. Both of these tools highlight how widely fandom engagement can vary. Recognizing these differences can help in understanding how a fandom can support or hinder personal development. Fans with really high intensity of engagement can have really rich social lives, but also are at risk of their obsessions going too far. Ultimately, measuring fandom intensity not only contributes to our academic understanding, but it also allows fans to reflect on their relationship with their favorite media. It provides the framework for discussing and analyzing fandom culture in a nuanced way. As we wrap up today's episode of Between Realms, it's very clear that fandoms have a massive impact on both our individual lives and our society as a whole. Now, whether it's Marvel Comics, MCU, Harry Potter, Twilight, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, anything that we mentioned or referenced today, embracing these passions can foster community, creativity, and healing. It's all about balance. However, we really need to be aware of the potential risk of becoming too obsessed. Thank you so much for joining me today and listening to me talk about what I'm passionate about, because I love psychology and this is really fun for me. But yeah, if you like this episode, I'd really love it if you subscribe, share it with somebody that you think would like it too. That's always helpful, and leave a like if you liked it, I guess. Always looking to continue these discussions in the comments, so I look forward to chatting with you guys all week. Thanks for watching, and I love you all. Bye!